Hi. All right. So I'm going to give you some quick tips on how, if I was a student coming into this program, I would work on, say, a paper, a memo style paper required for the class. Okay. So first things first, I'm going to run through a few different things. I'm going to run through Google Docs, my favorite tips and tricks, because there are some really good ones, Google Scholar, how to find articles when you need an evidence basis, which you will kind of always do. Also, how to get your citations automatically generated by Google Scholar for you, so that they're more likely to be correct. And I think that's probably about it. So anyway, I'm going to try to kind of go through it that way. I'm going to show you tips and tricks on how to get articles from the library and things like that too, and I'll talk about it in general as well. So if there's part of this that you know you're familiar with already, you can skip around, whatever works for you. Okay, so first of all, you should know this, but you have access to Google Apps for Education as a university student. So when you go to log in to Google Docs, right, like I'm on the Google Docs template gallery right now, you would want to sign in with your U of A stuff. I think you have to do at email.arizona.edu. I'm not sure. They're changing those email addresses, and that's been a little tricky, but just so you know. So if you are looking for the memo format, the one that actually matches the best, they used to call it memo format, they don't anymore. Actually, project proposal is really close. So again, a memo format is supposed to be just where you're keeping things really succinct, you're trying to keep it concise, and you just want it to look good and to communicate your points very clearly. So having those headings like is in this project proposal, I'll just pick one to work with it. And having bullet point spots and that kind of stuff is great. So this one's kind of perfect. All right, so for me, let's say we are writing a memo about a leadership topic and we want to seem smart, but I have writer's block. And so I know I need to write this overview, but I got nothing. I don't know what to do. So one of the first things I often like to do is I will go in and go to tools and choose voice typing, right? And that lets me just speak at the document, which is so helpful. So if you are just stuck and you're not able to write, it's always easier to edit than it is to do your first draft. So you can do your first draft voice typing. It will be a mess usually and not what you really want in the end, but that's fine. Who cares, right? You got it started. That's what you really need, is just to get it started. So you can turn on voice typing and you can use that to get you started, which can be a really good hurdle, especially if you're a procrastinator, to get over that. There's lots of other exciting, really helpful things in here. Citations is one. So here too, same thing, you can turn on citations, you can switch to APA, you can add a citation. It will help you, it will help walk you through, doing the citation properly, and it will input it. The problem is garbage in, garbage out, right? So if you don't know or remember that titles are supposed to be sentence case, which means like this. Sentence case means we only capitalize certain letters. Oh, great, I can't spell capitalize. Fun. Okay. If you can't remember that, then it doesn't help you. Okay. So it's that kind of issue. If you can't remember those rules for APA, which you probably maybe don't. I've been using APA for so long, of course I remember them. But those kind of things can trip you up. Still, this is a way to walk through doing your citations in Google Docs from the source, nice and clean. If you are considering grad school, I only recommend this if you're considering grad school, but if you're considering grad school, I also strongly recommend you use something like Paperpile to insert your citations instead, right? So Paperpile is a paid service, but it is a reference manager. And the key to that is that it will import, format all of them, do all the exciting good stuff for you perfectly. I'm not going to do a deep dive on it. They have their own videos. Their videos are better than mine would ever be. but it will save the document for you, the actual PDF, right? And it will organize all those PDFs into your Google Drive so that you never lose a source. That, when you're a grad student, is so important that you have all the actual sources themselves, that you don't have to go find this article over and over again every time you try to cite it or something, or when you need it for class, or when you need it for this next research project, whatever. So it can be a lifesaver. It does a really good job with citations, all of those good things. So those are some of the really key elements to keep in mind. And I'm actually going to rename this and make this my support document, that I will help with. So let's say Google Docs plus APA citation support. Okay, so those are some quick super tricks for using Google Docs to do your work for you. Google Docs is always acceptable when you need to get it ready for class, per se. You can turn in a link if you share the link, right? You could turn in a link to me, or instead, what I think is usually better is if you go to File and then you download this in the format that you want. For D2L, it needs to be a doc or a PDF, right? So you can download it in either of those and then turn that in, and you're good to go, and it's great. There's a million other things you can do, but those are the ones you really want to know for class. All right, so I want to grab a couple links to put in here, and then I will show you guys putting in an actual, or let's go to Google Scholar to find some exciting things to help us. Okay, now that I have kind of worked this document the way I wanted to, the next thing I wanted to bring your attention to is thinking about using something like Grammarly. So there is a free version, but there's also paid versions. So I'm going to open it over here. So the nice thing about Grammarly is, you can also use it in Word. It's a little more robust sometimes in Word. So for example, like you can set the goals of your audience by clicking goals if you've got it all installed. You can, yeah, you can say, a lot of times I'm writing it expert level for my work and I'm writing academic, etc., right? Now, for a lot of the things you're doing for class, you actually probably would pick knowledgeable or general. And then you might pick informal occasionally or neutral, but again, it just depends on which thing you're writing, what you're writing it for, which class, etc. You can also pick which way you need to go, and it will tell you applies things with medium strictness. Academic, of course, applies strict rules, would be formal and expert. This would be like the craziest, most intense. I have the paid version because I love Grammarly. It improves my writing. It has helped me, you know, write so many expensive, possibly expensive things. So when I write for grants, when I write for conferences, when I'm writing all these things that I really want someone to select me for, Grammarly helps make sure that I am not too tired and missing commas, or doing dumb things with words, or using what it's really good for is some of the things that traps I fall into. I use the same word over and over. Sometimes I'll get kind of stuck on that one as the metaphor that I'm using in a particular piece. So it can help. It'll be like, hey, you've used this word 12 times. What's wrong with you? Let me suggest an option. So that's really helpful. The tone part is experimental, but at the same time, it is useful. So there can be times when you want things to sound a certain way and it can help you learn tone. So, but again, there's a free version which doesn't do quite this level at all. And this is the paid version that does more. So in this case, we're trying to inform and describe, whatever. I don't know what tone I would want. But if I was setting these standards, that would be helpful. For me right now, I'm informal, but it doesn't even let you choose informal when you have academic chosen. So this would be general, informal. This is fine. These are the things I'm trying to do. So if I set those goals, it's going to give me options for things that I probably need to fix. So in this case, correctness, I believe, is the only thing. Correctness and clarity might be the things that are free, and all of these are paid options. So in correctness, I've got some problems. So it's going to be like, hey, you're missing a comma. right? It will tell you when you're using a phrase that maybe you don't need. Um, Same thing, rewriting a sentence. It's like, hey, this is a terrible sentence. It is a terrible sentence. If I add a period, it might get more happy with me. Oh, now it's happy. Great. And it says that's quite an improvement. Those kinds of things, they're helpful. This will help you with conventions that you may not know. Um, Oh, and then it's really upset at this fake Latin that's in here, the lorem ipsum. Anyway, so we will ignore the lorem ipsum solutions and not worry about that. But I just wanted you to see kind of how it works. I'm going to close that now too. But down here, it's like, whoa, you've got some real problems still. Be aware. You can turn it off when you need to and that kind of stuff too. But it's very helpful. The other thing is if you are working collaboratively in documents with another student or something like that, be aware that you can change this method, right? So you could change it to suggesting, and then you can send a link out to somebody where they're only allowed to make suggestions. Um, Kind of tricky. I'll try to see if I can do it with just myself real quick or something, one of my other emails. Yeah, so they can be a commenter or an editor or just a viewer, right? Any of those things. And you can choose. So you can choose what abilities they have when they come in. So you can ask them to just make suggestions, which will then pop up to you as suggestions, and then you can decide what to do with them. Or you can let them be an editor, or you can tell them to only view. That can be really helpful for collaborative work. What's also really good to know about that is version history. So you can always see any changes anyone has made by looking through version history at any time, which is really nice sometimes. So if you never lose anything you wrote at any point, which I love because sometimes I'll have used this language 3 drafts ago that I'm still in love with, but I rewrote and I want it back. So sometimes I find that incredibly useful to go back and get it. All right, so now let's take a look at if you were having to do APA, right? And let's talk briefly about why we harp on you so much. Why do you need sources? Okay, so in our classes, you need sources because we expect you to be developing evidence-based ideas and to be thinking about um, the science behind leadership and the science behind, the psychology that we look at and the science behind organizations. Well, you can't really be doing that if you don't read any science. So we try to give you books and things like that that condense years and years of scientific efforts into a more manageable format, right? That's what textbooks are, so that you can get it quick, kind of a quick download version. But if you are trying to add more evidence basis and more expert power to your work, right? That's when you need citations. So one of the reasons that we're constantly harping on you for and saying you're going to need to add an evidence-based source here or you're going to need to add this here, whatever, is because you're adding expert power to your work. And this is how we convince people in the workplace to do what we believe or slash know is best. So for example, I'm teaching my IO class right now, so the students are writing up evidence-based interventions for problems that they've discovered in an organization, right? So let's just say there's a problem with stress in a particular job. That never happens, right? But anyway, so what they would need to then do is find support for a way to alleviate that stress, for an intervention that could help that problem. But I'm not okay with them just going to Fast Company and grabbing it. Harvard Business Review is based in real science, but Fast Company, not always. Sometimes it's just an opinion piece. That's not going to work. So instead, they need to be based in scholarly work. The nice part about using scholarly sources is you are freed from being critical of the bias of a source. You are freed from being critical of the result in terms of they'll tell you the limitations outright, so you don't have to be like, who funded this? Let me worry about this, whatever. All of that will be written into an article. These articles have already been peer reviewed by other experts in the field before they make it into a scholarly journal. So the nice thing is, yes, you still need to be a critical thinker, but you can not worry so much about that piece. That piece has been done for you. That's why we are so reliant on and tried to pressure you to get your sources from peer-reviewed journals, right? Because that means it's already been reviewed by other experts in the field. It's gone through an editor before it made it to publication, which means they've already checked the methods, they've already checked the science, they've already checked the statistics, which means you don't have to, which you shouldn't be expected to do at the undergraduate level anyway. So that allows you to say, okay, I will use this as an evidence basis, but I don't have to worry about all that other stuff. I'm not expected at this level that I'm at right now to be able to be critical of whatever statistical technique they used. That's not your wheelhouse. So when I assign you certain articles to read for classes or things like that, they've already gone through this process if they're the peer-reviewed ones. Sometimes I also assign popular articles, but usually I'm going with peer-reviewed articles like the meta-analyses, things like that. You can just use their results, trust that they're real. Someone else has already decided that they're good, safe, can be put out as an evidence-based item, and work with that. So let's just say it's time. You need some sources. You're ready to add some expert power to your work, right? So let's look at the quicker ways to do that. Number one, go to scholar.google.com. This is only going to search those things, or you can search case law, but we're not going to do that. So let's say we're searching for articles. I did this recently for another class, if you can't tell. So I use these things. But first, before we even do that, I recommend that you sign in with your University of Arizona stuff, okay? So over here, sign in with your U of A account. And then you want to go over here to the left and go into, I think, settings. Yeah, okay. And then go to library links. And in here, you can put University of Arizona, search for it, and click it. Oh, I should have two of those clicked. Okay. And then click save. What that's going to do is mean that when we search for something, I can use, it's silly, but I can use university professors, stress and health or whatever really quickly. It's going to tell you if you can get the full text and how over here to the right. That's great. You can get the whole article. Woohoo! Right? Wonderful. Okay. And it's going to, so if I were to click on this one, it would take me through the U of A portal to get this article. Okay, great, super helpful because a lot of times you need the full article and actually need to look at it. You can't just work from the abstract. So that's wonderful. But okay, so say we love this. We think, 2011, 2013 isn't so far gone that we wouldn't use this 1976 one, but we will use this 2011, 2013 for whatever we're trying to write, probably. Okay. We'd probably want to look at actually look at the article a little better, the ADIRM method, right? So you'd look at the abstract, the discussion, then you'd look at the other parts if you need to. Introduction. You guys can ignore usually results and methods, okay, at the undergraduate level. But so you would read in that order and you skim usually instead of deep read before you read. You skim to make sure this article applies to your problem, is useful for whatever you're trying to write, etc. But okay, say we've already done that. We've read this one. We know this article's for us. Social support, sure. We want to write about it. Now we need the citation. So this is where you click this little guy. And there it is, right there. Perfect. Copy, paste, can use it, pull it in, all done. And then you don't even have to use that long citation thing in Google Docs. And if you're using Paperpile, it works different. We're not going to talk about that. Okay, but the other thing is, if this article, let's just say this one was perfect. This article is like everything that you were hoping for. It's going to help you. It's great, but you want more articles. All right, click the cited by. This is going to show you all the articles that cited this article. So they're going to be very related to this kind of thing. Ooh, imposter syndrome, one of my favorite topics. So this 2018 article might also be perfect. So I might open it. I usually right click and open a new tab so I don't lose my search results and I can always come back. All right, great. Here it is. We want to read the full text and get the PDF. It looks like it's already, okay, it's not available just yet. So I'm going to do my sneaky trick. A lot of students would now go to the library, search this, try to get it that way. here's the sneaky, faster, better way. Use Google Chrome to start with, and then use an extension which I've linked in that document called Easy Proxy. So yes, it's gonna fuss at you about where you're going. Go anyway, it's okay. Um, it's gonna log you in. And what this is doing is rerouting you to our library's version of this document. And guess what? Now we have the whole thing. And I can read the whole thing instead of just the abstract. And I'm like, wow, this is exactly what I needed. Now I have it. Hooray! And I can download the PDF and I can save it and keep it and have it for the rest of my life if I want, which of course for me is exciting. And because I right-clicked to get over there, I can still come right over here and get my citation and copy paste it into my document and walk away happy, right? So just for fun, I'm going to do that real quick. I'm going to grab it. And is this where this goes? No, right? So instead, what I need here, I often do it this way though, is I would need to put in the last names. And a lot of times I'll actually even, so that I don't even have to retype it, I'll do it one time. So we would keep that here, and then I would take this and I would cut it out and put it in my references section, right? And I'm done. A hanging indent is preferred, but everybody understands it on the internet. Those are really hard to do. Discussion posts, you can't do them, etc. So the hanging indent is, again, preferred, not necessary though. That's just kind of an extra. If you're in Word and it's easy and quick to do, please do it for your references section. But if you're not, it's fine. Don't worry about it. And let's go ahead and make sure that this matches the rest of the document. So we've got references here. I would like this to be probably its own section. So we're heading 1. This is a way to sneaky, by the way, sneaky, make sure that everything looks right, that your document matches. Now, when we switch to normal text though for that one, it killed our italics, which I don't like. So instead for that, we might not do that and we might just switch the font to whatever this font is for this one. I think it's Proxima. There we go. And now it all matches. It's pretty. Happy day. Good. Okay. Proxima 11. Yeah, but I would have waited to do all that little quick formatting to make sure everything's pretty until I had all the references copied over, because they're all going to be wrong and I can just make that change to all of them all at once. So anyway, so there's our sample reference, and this is the in-text version that we would use. Okay, so let's grab a sample reference as well. And same thing here, where I need to do just a little formatting to make sure that everything's all the same across my document. Ooh, that's not right. This one, none of this is right, is it? Helpful. Okay. Yeah, I do get a little font happy, perhaps is a term. I really hate when stuff visually doesn't match. So it is something that I do. All right, so we've done that. And there's so many ways to do that. If you were using a reference manager, you could use your reference manager to do it. You can do it this way. Another thing that I allow in any memos for my classes is for you to use footnotes instead of creating a reference section. I find when you have a lot of references, a lot of times a reference section is easier and it doesn't make your paper look so gross. But you can use a footnote instead. So if you wanted to do that, fine. You could put insert your footnote, do a 1, and then here is where you would put the full reference, right? Fine, but you still need the in-text citation like this or something, so that it's like that. So it saves you a tiny bit of work, but not a ton. But just if you're only using 1 or 2 references, that can be a little easier than creating a reference section. It's up to you. It doesn't matter to me. I just don't like when it is visually distracting. So if you've got 7 references down here and it's taking up half the page, that's really annoying. I don't think that's helpful. So just keeping that kind of stuff in mind. Figure out what you like, what works best for you. It's fine. So that's kind of how I go about choosing articles, choosing what to read. That's just a quick reminder of the method that I teach you for reading them in class. I'll link that ADRM method in here too. Um, and how to grab the citations quicker and easier. And they're almost always correct out of Google Scholar as well. Sometimes Paperpile formats them for me, but again, it's garbage in, garbage out. So if the input is crappy, then the output is too. And I know how to look and say, wait, something looks wrong here. So it's quick and easy for me. But if it wasn't and you weren't quite as familiar with your references and how to do that, sometimes I will literally come to Google Scholar and search for the exact title of a particular article if I don't have the reference, just so I can get the citation. And that's fine. Who cares? Do what is the fastest and the easiest and is the most likely to get you the correct reference for something. Um, and you will be in good shape. The other nice thing is if you find something and you're like, this is amazing. I think this is exactly what I want to use as a source. And then you come to Google Scholar and you search for it and it doesn't come up. That will tell you that it's not based on a peer-reviewed something, right? If you search for that author and some of the keywords in a popular press article like on Fast Company or something, a lot of times you can come here, search for the author, search for the topic, and the actual article that they put in a research journal about that before they wrote for the press or the media will come up, and you can look at the real research that it's based on, and that's awesome. But if it doesn't come up, then you know it wasn't necessarily research based. So this is also a good way to check the evidence basis if you do find like this amazing article on some newspaper website or something instead, and you're like, oh, I think this is perfect, but they don't have citations. So you can't tell if they have an evidence basis for what they wrote. This is a good way to double check and to find those references too. So just keep that kind of stuff in mind. You can create alerts around topics that you really love if you're like me and want to do that. There's lots of different ways to make this all just a little bit easier, but that easy proxy trick is the one most of my students love the most. So when you find an article and you really need the PDF or you really want the real article, that is much faster, and using this clicking is much faster. If you've set up in your settings your proper library links, then it's all much faster, much better than trying to go about things the other way and using the U of A library website. Unfortunately, that is just not as helpful. So those are some quick tips and tricks about using Google Scholar, using Easy Proxy, and using Google Docs to do the work for our class and do it well and present things well for our classes too. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I wanted to share about this. I don't think so. Grammarly has saved my life. Paperpile is super helpful, but again, I really only recommend paying for a reference manager if you're planning to be a graduate student and are going to just really need to know a reference manager inside and out and love it. Um, some of the other interesting things that are helpful in Google Docs, though, is that you can't always insert images that you find on the internet, which can be helpful for illustrating points, but also it can do tables, drawings, and charts. Um, and you can link it to a sheet to get that information in here for you. Tables are often more helpful for the kinds of things you guys are doing for class. You can do headers and footers, page numbers. You can basically do all the important stuff that you should be doing in Word in a simpler format here with less formatting options, which I personally find preferable. So a little less formatting so that I can just make it look good but walk away faster is always my preference. But that's just kind of personal stuff. So I just wanted to show you some of the quick ways to get your assignments done and get them done to our specifications without really stressing you out or making you spend a million years trying to figure this stuff out. The reason that you have to cite an APA is because that is an accepted standard to help people find the information that you have found for yourself. So if people want the original articles, you have to help them be able to get them. Otherwise, that's not expert power added to your work, right? So that's why it's important, and it's important to look detail oriented, to look intelligent, to give off those signals that you have put in the effort to do things correctly. When you're trying to lead through a document that's communicating something to someone, it's important that you give those signals. That's your way of communicating those elements through writing, right? I am trustworthy. I did do the research for you. You can trust me because I was detail oriented in how I'm reporting these things. You can look at my sources and tell that they come from acceptable scholarly resources. Look, they're in APA format. They would be easy for you to track down the originals if you needed to, etc. People will rarely track down your originals if you do a good job citing and making it clear that you understood and are using an evidence basis, right? So again, it's just to make your work more powerful and more persuasive. Um, so that people will implement our evidence-based solutions, hopefully in their workplaces, and make the workplace better for everyone. And leaders will get their followers to follow them more effectively and all that good stuff. All right, so I will not wax eloquent on that too much because I know I could for a long time and it gets exhausting. But yeah, so thank you for sitting through this if you did. I hope it really helped. If anything was not clear enough, you know where to find me. Let me know.